The British countryside abounds with lanes, farm tracks, bridleways and footpaths, and many of them cross a railway line somewhere. This short film is intended to help you to cross the railway safely. Around the country, there are almost 4,000 level crossings that put the responsibility on the user to cross safely. These crossings, known as user-worked crossings, sometimes have telephones to the nearest signal box to enable the user to cross safely with vehicles or animals. Others rely on the user looking both ways to make sure there's enough time to cross safely with a vehicle. Some are on country lanes with private access, and many are used by farmers to get into their fields. Whatever the type of use, signs are displayed giving clear instructions on how to use the level crossing safely. This farm crossing in Essex has telephones to help the farmer cross safely. If you're crossing with a herd of animals, a tractor or any other type of agricultural machine, it's absolutely vital to obtain the signaller's permission. This sign tells you to do so. Here we've got a herd of cattle to take over the level crossing, so the first thing to do is use the phone.
Thought box. Hi, is it possible to cross the line with some cows, please?
The signaller tells the farmer that it's not safe to cross. He must wait and call back later.
Can you phone me back in a few minutes, please? Well.
Now that a train has passed, the farmer again telephones the signaller for permission to cross.
How many animals have you got and how long do you require?
The signaller wants to know what the farmer is taking over the crossing and how long it will take. It's most important that you give the signaller accurate information. Taking animals over the crossing will need much more time than if taking a tractor.
Right, yep, you are protected. I've pulled up the protecting signals. You can use that crossing, but let me know when you are clear, please.
Yeah, okay then.
This time he gets permission to cross with the cattle. So he opens the gate on the far side first, then the one where the cattle are waiting. And over they go.
There we go. Keep it, keep it. Shh. Hey up, hey up, hey up.
When the last animal is over, he closes the crossing gate, again making sure to close the gate behind the cattle first. If you're taking a tractor over, don't leave the gates open, even if you intend to return in a short while. Somebody else might come along and go onto the crossing without realising the danger. Anyway, you can be prosecuted for leaving crossing gates open. The signaller might have asked you to call back once you've crossed the line and closed the gates. If so, it's important that you do. Otherwise, the signaller might think that the crossing is still occupied and stop the trains running. If you're taking animals over, you should always telephone again after crossing, whether you're asked to or not. The procedure we just looked at must be followed each and every time you use this type of crossing. So remember the sequence. Telephone first. Tell the signaller what you're taking across the railway. Open both gates before crossing. Close the gates once you're over. Telephone again if asked to do so. Throughout the country, there are hundreds of user-worked crossings without telephones. The users are solely responsible for their own safety. These crossings usually have good sighting, so approaching trains can be seen clearly in both directions, at least far enough for you to be able to cross safely. Here in Suffolk, the farmer is about to take a tractor and trailer across the railway line. Again, there's a sign telling him the safe procedure. He looks both ways. There's no train approaching from either direction. So he opens both gates. Then looks both ways again. Returning to the tractor, he pulls up to the crossing. Stops about 3 meters clear of the line. Checks both ways again then quickly drives over the crossing, making sure that the trailer is clear before stopping. Now he goes back to the crossing, looks both ways again, and if no train is approaching, closes both gates. So, remember the vital safe sequence. Look both ways and be alert when opening the gates. Open both gates. Drive carefully up to the crossing, stopping about 3 meters away from the line. Make sure that any equipment on the front of your vehicle is at least 2 meters from the nearest rail. Look both ways again, then drive across. Never stop on the crossing. Make sure you're clear of the crossing before stopping and closing the gates. On an electrified railway line where the power is supplied by overhead cables, make sure that any load you are taking over the crossing is below the safe height level. If in doubt, telephone the number displayed on the sign at the crossing. Of course, if you're crossing with a vehicle that is unusually long, wide, low, heavy or slow moving, you must telephone the helpline before using the crossing. If you can't see clearly in both directions because of trees or overgrown vegetation, call the helpline on 08457 11 41 41 and explain the problem. I'll repeat that number at the end of the programme. If you're a horse rider or cyclist, you may need to cross the railway over a bridleway level crossing. Let's look at riding the horse over first. Some bridleway crossings, like this one, have telephones because there's insufficient visibility. The sign tells you you should use the phone if crossing with animals. So if you're riding your horse, always use the phone before crossing. Once you've been given permission to cross, open the first gate. Ride over to the opposite gate, making sure that the first gate closes behind you. Then open the opposite gate and ride clear. Don't forget to make sure that the second gate closes after you've crossed. Now call the signalling centre from the phone on this side. It's important to let the signaller know that you've crossed safely and closed both gates.
Hello, this is the lady with the horse at Viewbush Crossing. Just letting you know I'm across safely and both gates are secure. Thank you.
The safest way for a rider to use a bridleway crossing is on horseback, so the horse is under your control. However, if there are overhead live wires, you will have to dismount. Obey the signs at the crossing. If the crossing doesn't have telephones, or you're riding a bike or walking, use it just like you would when crossing a busy road. Look right and left a couple of times and listen. If no train is approaching from either direction, cross quickly. Cyclists should dismount. Never ride over this type of level crossing. When you're out walking and you come across a footpath level crossing, take care and follow the simple rules. Stop, look and listen. Remember, trains can't stop quickly like cars. A train travelling at 75 miles per hour takes almost a mile to stop. So, stop at the crossing. Look right and left a couple of times to make sure no train is approaching. Listen. If you can hear the sound of a train or horn or whistle, stop and wait for the train to pass. Never take a chance and run across the line. Very few people survive being hit by a train. Once the train has passed, wait until you can see clearly in both directions. Never cross behind a train. You can't see what's on the other line. Now you can cross safely. Don't stop on the crossing. Keep children under control and dogs on a lead. If your dog runs off along the railway line, don't go after it. Several people have been killed chasing their dogs on the railway, with the dog usually surviving. If you're walking with a group of people, you're still responsible for ensuring your own personal safety. Don't rely on the others. Stop, look, and listen. All the different types of level crossings we've looked at have one thing in common. They're perfectly safe if you're careful, vigilant, and obey the instructions. Don't gamble with your life or anyone else's. The Level Crossing helpline is on 08457 11 41 41.